Fuck. I'm big now. I'm fucking big now. Look at me. Today, I'm going to be reading Le Mot d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory because it's one of the few books I own that's in the public domain. It's also thick as shit. Holy fuck. How many pages is this? I'm curious. $725. The best thing, I suppose, is just to crack it open. I've never read this before. I literally just bought this like last week. I suppose no one's going to be too upset if we skip the note on the retelling and the preface. So I'm just gonna skip ahead to the first chapter. As soon as I could find it. There we go. Book 1, The Birth of Arthur. It befell in the days of Uther Pendragon, when he was king of all England, and so reigned, that there was a mighty duke in Cornwall who waged war against him for a long time. This duke was called the Duke of... the Duke of Tintagel. We're off to a great start. And so King Uther sent for this duke, charging him to bring his wife with him, for she was a fair lady and very wise, and her name was Igraine. So when the duke and his wife were come unto the king, through the mediation of great lords, the king and the duke were brought into accord. However, the king liked and loved this lady too well, and he made for her a feast beyond measure, and he desired to lie with her. But she was a surprisingly good woman, and would not assent to the king's demands. And then she spoke to the duke, her husband, and said, I believe that we were sent for so that I would be thus dishonored. Therefore, husband, I counsel you that we depart from here immediately, so that we may ride this night unto our own castle. And, as she said, they departed, so that neither the king or any of his council were aware of their leave-taking. This book is heavy as fuck. It's making my arms tired. As soon as King Uther knew of their sudden departure, he grew exceedingly wrathful. So then he called unto him his privy council, and told them of the hasty disappearance of the duke and his wife. Whereupon they advised the king to send for the duke and his wife by means of a royal summons, and they said, If he will not come at your summons, then you can do your utmost, for then you shall have cause to wage mighty war against him. Already a lot going on. All because some dude was horny as fuck. So that was done, and the messengers received their answers, and it was, in short, that neither the duke nor his wife would come to the king. Then the king was angered once more, and then the king sent the duke plain word in return, and he bade him to make himself ready, and arm and provision himself and his men. For, within 40 days, the king said he would capture the duke, despite the strongest castle that he might seek refuge in. When the duke received this warning, anon he went and fortified and provisioned 2 mighty castles of his, one of which was called Tintagel, and the other castle was called Terrible. Why would you... The castle's name was Terrible? Like, literally, that's the fucking name of the castle. It's not an adjective, it's a noun. And the duke put his wife Dame Igraine in the castle of Tintagel, and he put himself in the castle of Terrible, which had many formidable battlements and gates. Then, in all haste, came King Uther with a mighty army, and he laid a siege about the castle of Terrible, and there he pitched many pavilions. And then there was a great war made by both sides, and many people were slain. Uh, this is hurting my hand to hold all this up. But then, from pure anger and for great love of beautiful Igraine, King Uther fell sick. So Sir Ulfius, a noble knight, came and... I almost said he came into King Uther. He came unto King Uther. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. And he asked the king why he was ailing. I shall tell you, said the king. I am sick from anger and from love of fair Igraine, so that I do not feel healthy. I'm sick because I'm sick. My dick too hard. Well, my lord, said King Ulfius, I shall seek Merlin, and he will give you a remedy so that your heart will be pleased. So Sir Ulfius departed, and, by chance, he met Merlin clothed in the attire of a beggar. And there Merlin asked Sir Ulfius whom he sought, and Sir Ulfius replied that he had little reason to tell him. Well, said Merlin, I know whom you seek, for you seek Merlin. Therefore, seek no further, because I am he. And if King Uther will richly reward me, and swear unto me to fulfill my wish, it shall be to his honor and profit more than mine, for I shall cause him to have all his desire. All this I will... Hold on, let me... I should probably get my... I'm going to get my reading glasses on here. Let me just... Boop. There we go. Where was I? All this will I undertake, said Sir Ulfius, and you shall have your wish, if it is not unreasonable. Well, said Merlin, King Uther shall then have his intent and desire, and, therefore, ride on your way, for I will not be long behind. Then was Sir Ulfius glad, and he swiftly rode on until he came to King Uther Pendragon, and told him that he had met with Merlin. Where is he? Said the king. Sir, said Ulfius, he will not long delay. Upon which Sir Ulfius was aware that Merlin stood on the porch of the pavilion's door, and then Merlin was ordered to come unto the king. This is gonna be fucking hard as shit. They keep saying, come unto the king. When King Uther saw Merlin, he said he was welcome. Sir, said Merlin, I know every part of your heart. If you will swear unto me as a true anointed king to fulfill my wish, you shall have your desire. So then did the king swear this upon the four evangelists. Sir, said Merlin. They say that a lot, don't they? This is my request. The first night that you will lie with Igraine, you shall beget a child by her, and, when that child is born, it shall be delivered unto me in order to raise as I please, for it shall be to your honor and the child's benefit, as great as this child will be. It shall be so, said the king, as you wish to have it. Dude just gave up his... It's kind of fucked up. The kid's not even, like, conceived, and he's already sworn him to this fucking homeless man. Now, make yourself ready, said Merlin. This night you shall lie with Igraine in the castle of Tintagel, and you shall appear to be the duke, her husband. Sir Ulfius shall appear to be Sir Brastias, a knight of the duke's, and I will appear to be a knight who is called Sir Jordanus, a knight of the duke's. But beware that you do not engage in much conversation with her or her men, but say you are ill, and so you must go to bed, and do not rise in the morning until I come to you, for the castle of Tintagel is but 10 miles from here. So this was done as they devised, but the Duke of Tintagel espied that the king rode away from the siege of Terrabil, and, therefore, that night, the Duke rode out of the castle from a gate in order to attack the king's forces. And so, because of his own actions, the Duke himself was slain even before the king came to the castle of Tintagel. And it came to pass that after the demise of the Duke, King Uther lay with Igraine more than 3 hours after the Duke's death, and begat Arthur on her that night. Then, before daybreak, Merlin came to the king, and bade him make himself ready, and so King Uther kissed the lady Igraine, and departed in all haste. But, when the lady Igraine heard tell of the fate of the Duke, her husband, and that he was dead before King Uther came to her, Then did she wonder greatly who that man might be who lay with her in the likeness of her lord, and she mourned secretly, but said nothing. Then all the barons, by one assent, beseeched the king for an accord between the Lady Igraine and himself. Whereupon the king gave them leave to seek it, for he wished to reach agreement with her. So the king put all his trust in Sir Ulfius to entreat between them, and so, by this negotiation, at last the king and she did meet together. Now will we farewell, said Ulfius. Our king is a handsome knight and wifeless, and my Lady Igraine is an exceedingly beautiful lady. It would be a great joy unto all us. I love reading old stuff like this. I'm gonna make a quick change real quick. Let me get give me just a second. That's better. Now my mouth will open when I read. Okay, now let's see, where was I? It would be a great joy unto us all if it would please. Man, this is hard. It would be a great joy unto us all if it would please the king to make her his queen. Unto that suggestion that they all agreed, and they presented it to the king, and anon, like a lusty knight, he assented thereto with all good will. So in all haste they were married on a morning with great mirth and joy. Then King Lot of Lothian and Orkney wedded Morgause, who later was Sir Gawaine's mother, the first daughter of Igraine and the Duke of Tintagel, and King Nitrais of the land of Garlot wedded Elaine, who was the second daughter. All this was done at the request of King Uther, and the third daughter, Morgan Le Fay, was sent to school in a nunnery, and there she learned so much of enchantments that she was a great scholar of necromancy. And, after Morgan Le Fay was wedded to King Uriens of the land of Gore, who was the father of Sir Owain Le Blancman. Le Blanchman? Le Blanchman? Alright, well, they just dumped, like, 4 people's entire family trees in a paragraph. Orkney wedded Morgause, who later was Sir Gawaine's mother, the first daughter of Igraine. And the Duke of... who later was Sir Gawaine's... Then Queen Igraine's belly grew larger day by day, and so it befell within half a year, as King Uther lay beside his queen, he asked her, by the faith she owed to him, who fathered the child within her body. So then she was sorely abashed to give an answer. Be not dismayed, said the king, but tell me the truth, and I shall love you all the more by the faith of my body. Sir, said she, I shall tell you the truth. The same night that my lord was slain, at the very hour of his death, as his knights did record, there came into my castle of Tintagel a man very much like my lord in speech and in countenance, and he had 2 knights with him in the likeness of the duke's 2 knights, Sir Brastias and Sir Jordanus. So I went to bed with him, as was my obligation to my lord, and that same night, as I shall answer unto God, this child was begotten upon me. That is the truth, said the king, as you say, for it was I myself who came in his likeness, and therefore do not dismay because I am father to this child. And then he told her all that had befallen, and how it was by Merlin's counsel. Then was the queen overjoyed when she knew who was the father of her child. Yeah, I killed your husband and knocked you up, and you didn't find out about it till 6 months later. Oh, and we're gonna give the baby to a hobo. This is going so fucking fantastic. I can't lie. Where was I? Soon thereafter came Merlin unto the king, and he said, Sir, you must provide for the upbringing of your child. As you wish, said the king, so be it. Well, said Merlin, I know a lord of yours in this land who is a surpassingly true and faithful man, and he shall have the responsibility for the rearing of your child. The lord's name is Sir Ector, and he is a lord of substantial livelihood in many parts of England and Wales. And this lord, Sir Ector, let him be sent for to come and speak with you, and you should ask him, as he loves you, to put his own child in the care of another woman, and that this wife would rear your what? And that his wife should rear yours. So when your child is born, let him be delivered to me at yonder gate unchristened. And so, as Merlin arranged, was it done. And then Sir Ector was come. He vowed unto the king to raise the child as the king desired, and then the king granted Sir Ector great rewards. Thus, when the Lady Igraine was delivered of child, the king commanded 2 knights and 2 ladies to take the child, covered in a cloth of gold. And the king said, Deliver this child to the poor man you meet at yonder gate of the castle. So the child was delivered to Merlin, and he carried it forth unto Sir Ector, and he had a holy man christen him, and he was named Arthur, and thus Sir Ector's wife suckled the baby with her own breast. But then within 2 years King Uther fell sick from a grievous malady, and in the meanwhile his enemies rose up against him, and fought a terrible battle against his men, and slew many of his people. Sir, said Merlin to King Uther, you cannot lie there as you do. You must go to the field of battle, even though you ride upon a horse litter, for you shall never have the better of your enemies unless your person is there, and then will you have the victory over your adversaries. So it was done as Merlin had suggested, and his warriors carried the king forth upon a horse litter, accompanied by a mighty host, against his enemies. And at St. Alban there did the king meet a great army of the north, and, on that day, Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias accomplished many heroic feats of arms, and King Uther's soldiers overcame the northern forces, and slew many people, and put the remnant to flight. And then the king returned unto London, and celebrated his victory with much joy and merrymaking. But then the king fell gravely ill, so that for 3 days and 3 nights he was without speech, whereupon all the barons were deeply sorrowful, and they asked Merlin what counsel was best. There is no remedy, said Merlin. God will have his way. But look, you barons, appear before King Uther tomorrow, and God and I shall make him speak. So, on the morn, all the barons and Merlin came before the king. They came before the king. Whew. There's a lot of shit going on, and we're like 3 pages in. They just don't write books like they used to, don't they? Alright, where was I? So on the morn all the barons and Merlin came before the king, and then Merlin said aloud unto King Uther, Sir, after your days are done, shall your son Arthur be king of this realm, with all the rights and privileges appertaining thereto? Whereupon Uther Pendragon turned to Merlin and said, within the hearing of them all, To Arthur do I give God's blessing and mine, and bid him pray for my soul, and charge him to righteously and honorably claim the crown upon forfeiture of my blessing. And with this, King Uther yielded up the ghost, and then he was interred as befitted a king, whereupon the queen, fair Igraine, had great sorrow, and so did all the barons. When the realm stood in a great jeopardy for a long while, because every lord who was strong in numbers of men wished to be king, so Merlin went unto the Archbishop of Canterbury, and counselled him to send for all the lords of the realm, and all the gentlemen of arms, saying that they should come to London by Christmas, upon pain of excommunication. And they should come for this reason, that Jesus, who was born on that night, of his great mercy, as he was born to be king of mankind, would reveal some miracle as to who should rightfully be the king of this realm. So the archbishop, upon the advice of Merlin, sent for all the lords and gentlemen of arms, and told them that they should come to London by Christmas. And many of them confessed their sins, and sought absolution, so that their prayers might be the more acceptable unto God. So, in the greatest church of London, whether it was St. Paul's or not, the French book makes no mention, all the participants spent the long day in the church in order to pray. But then, when matins and the first mass were finished, they saw in the churchyard, against the high altar, a large square marble stone, and in the middle of it there was an anvil of steel a foot high, and stuck. Oh, what happened to my glasses? What the hell happened to my glasses? That's better. Now I can see. Now, where was I? Come to London by Christmas. Greatest church. Oh, yes. An anvil of steel, a foot high, and stuck in the anvil was a magnificent naked sword, and letters were written in gold around the sword, which said thus: Whoever pulls this sword out of this stone and anvil is rightfully born king of all England. Then did the people marvel greatly, and they did tell of it to the archbishop. I command, said the archbishop, that you remain within the church, and continue to pray unto God. Let no man touch the sword till the high mass is all done. So when the masses were ended, and the lords went to behold the sword and the stone, and when they read the letters of gold, some attempted to withdraw the sword, those who wished to be king. But no one could stir the sword, nor move it. He is not here, said the archbishop. The man who shall withdraw the sword, but doubt not that God will make him known. And this be my counsel, that we select 10 knights, men of good repute, and that they guard this sword. So it was thus ordained. And when was... I'm really fucking struggling here. I'm not gonna lie, this is hard. So was it thus ordained, and then there was made a general outcry that every man should assay it to wish to win the sword. And upon New Year's Day, the barons decreed a joust and a tournament, so that all knights who would joust and ride there could sport and play. And all this was commanded in order to keep the lords together and for the common good, because the archbishop trusted that God would make the man known who would attain the sword. Thus upon New Year's Day, when the service was done, and the barons rode into the field, some to joust and some to sport, and it so happened that Sir Ector, who possessed much land about London, rode unto the jousts. With him rode Sir Kay, his son, who had been made a knight at the previous All Saints' Day, and young Arthur, who had been reared as his brother. But as they rode toward the joust, Sir Kay did not have his sword, for he had left it at the father's lodging. So Sir Kay prayed young Arthur to ride for his sword. I will do so, said Arthur, and he rode fast to fetch the sword. But when he came home, the lady and all the household were gone to witness the jousting. Then Arthur was angry, and he said to himself, I will ride to the churchyard and take the sword that sticks in the stone, for my brother Sir Kay shall not be without a sword this day. So when he came to the churchyard, Arthur alighted and tied his horse to the fence, and then he went to the tent, but he found no knights there, for they were all jousting. And thus he took the sword by the handle, and easily and swiftly pulled it out of the stone. Whereupon he mounted his horse and rode upon his way until he came to his brother, Sir Kay, and delivered the sword to him. And as soon as Sir Kay saw the sword, he knew well that it was the sword of the stone. And so he rode to his father, Sir Ector, and said, Sir, lo, here is the sword of the stone. Therefore I must be king of this land. When Sir Ector beheld the sword, he commanded that they return unto the church. And there did the three alight from their mounts and enter therein. And anon he made Sir Kay swear upon a Bible how he came by that sword. Sir, said Sir Kay, from my brother Arthur, for he brought it to me. How did you get this sword? Said Sir Ector to Arthur. Sir, I will tell you, said Arthur. When I came home from my brother's sword, I found nobody there to give me his sword, and I thought that my brother Sir Kay should not be swordless. So I came here eagerly and pulled the sword out of the stone without any effort. Did you find any knights around this sword? Said Sir Ector. Nay, said Arthur. Now, said Sir Ector to Arthur, I understand that you must be king of this land. Wherefore, said Arthur, and for what reason? Sir, said Sir Ector, because God will have it so, for no man can draw this sword out of the stone, save the one who shall rightfully be king of this land. Now let me see whether you can put the sword in the stone as it was, and pull it out again. That requires no great skill, said Arthur, and so he put the sword back into the stone. Thereupon Sir Ector tried to pull out the sword, and failed. Now you tried to pull out the sword, said Sir Ector unto Sir Kay, and anon Sir Kay pulled at the sword with all his might, but it was not to be. Now you attempt it, said Sir Ector to Arthur. I will do so, said Arthur, and he pulled it out easily, and with this Sir Ector knelt down to the earth, and also did Sir Kay. Alas, said Arthur, my own dear father and brother, why do you kneel before me? Nay, nay, my lord Arthur, said Sir Ector, it is not so. I was never your father, and I am not even kin of your blood. But now I know well that you are of a higher blood than I believed you to be. And then Sir Ector told Arthur all of how the baby was entrusted unto him in order to raise him, and by those commandment said, and by Merlin's deliverance, whereupon Arthur was sorely distressed when he came to understand that Sir Ector was not his father. Sir, said Sir Ector unto Arthur, will you be my good and gracious lord when you are king? If I am not, then I would be worthy of blame, said Arthur, for you are the one man in the world that I am most beholden to, and also to my good lady and mother, your wife, who has fostered me and kept me as faithfully as her own, and if it is ever God's will that I be king, as you say, you have just to request of me what you wish me to do, and I will not fail you. God forbid that I should fail you. Sir, said Sir Ector, I ask no more of you but that you make my son, your foster brother, Sir Kay, steward of all your lands. That shall be done, said Arthur, and more, by the faith of my body, and no man shall hold this office but he, will he and I live. With this they went unto the archbishop, and told him how the sword was attained, and by whom. And on 12th night all the barons came there, and those who wished to try and attempt to take the sword from the stone. But there before them all no man could pull out the sword, save for Arthur. At this many lords were wrathful, and they said it was a great shame unto them all, and the realm to be governed by a boy born of no high blood. And so they fell out at that time, and agreed to put it off until Candlemas, when all the barons would meet there again. But always the 10 knights were ordained to watch the sword day and night, and so they set a pavilion over the sword and the stone, and 5 always watched. Thus at Candlemas many more great lords came there to try to win the sword, but none did there prevail, and just as Arthur did at Christmas, he did at Candlemas, and easily pulled out the sword, whereupon the barons were sorely aggrieved, and they put it off in another delay till the high feast of Easter. And as Arthur did before, so did he accomplish that feat again at Easter. Yet some of the great lords were indignant that Arthur should be king, and they postponed it, and still another delay until the feast of Pentecost. Then the Archbishop of Canterbury, upon Merlin's proposing, ordered the best knights that they could get, and the knights whom Uther Pendragon loved most and trusted most in his days, to be appointed as guardians. And these knights were placed around Arthur, such as Sir Baldwin, Sir Baldwin of Britain, Sir Kay, Sir Ulfius, and Sir Brastias. All these, with many others, were always about Arthur, day and night, till the feast of Pentecost. And at the feast of Pentecost all manner of men attempted to pull out the sword, but none did prevail save Arthur, who pulled out the sword before all the lords and commoners who were there. Whereupon all the commoners cried out at once, We will have Arthur for our king. We shall accept no more delay, because we all see that it is God's will that he shall be our king, and he who stands against it, we will slay him. And with this they all kneeled at once, both rich and poor, and they beseeched mercy of Arthur, because they had delayed him so long. And Arthur forgave them, and took the sword in both hands, and offered it upon the altar where the archbishop prayed, and thus was he made knight by the best man who was there. And so anon was the coordination. And so anon was the coronation made, and there was Arthur sworn unto his lords and the commoners to be a righteous king, to stand with true justice from thenceforth all the days of his life. Also then he made all lords who were subjects of the crown to come unto him and swear fealty, as they were bound to do. And many complaints were made unto Sir Arthur of grievous wrongs that I'm going cross-eyed here, I swear. That were done since the death of King Uther, whereby many lands were seized unjustly from lords, knights, ladies, and gentlemen, whereupon King Arthur caused these lands to be returned unto those who rightfully owned them. When this was done, and the king had established all the countries about London, when did he make Sir Kay steward of England, and Sir Baldwin of Britain was made constable, and Sir Ulfius was made chamberlain, and Sir Brastias was made warden, to guard the north from Trent forwards. For it was, at that time, the stronghold of the king's enemies, but Within a few years, King Arthur defeated all the north in Scotland, and all those who pledged allegiance to his adversaries. Also, a part of Wales rebelled against King Arthur, but he overcame them all, as he did any remaining opponents, through the undaunted prowess of himself and his knights of the Round Table. Then the king journeyed unto Wales, and proclaimed that a great feast should be held at Pentecost after his coronation at the city of Carlion. Pages are sticking. Fuck. Unto this feast came King Lot of Lothian and Orkney with 500 knights. Also there came to the feast King Urien of Gore with 400 knights. Also there came to the feast King Nintrace of Garla with 700. Ooh! Dinner's fighting back. Also there came to the feast the King of Scotland with 600 knights, and he was but a young man. Also there came to the feast a king who was called the King with the 100 Knights, and he and his men were quite well appointed and equipped. Also there came the King of Carados with 500 knights, and King Arthur was glad of their coming, for he... Oh, man. For he believed that all the kings and knights had come from great love, and to do him honor at his feast. Therefore Arthur was well pleased, and he sent the kings splendid presents. But the kings would not receive the presents, and rebuked the messengers shamefully, and said they had no joy in receiving gifts from a beardless boy of base blood. Instead, they sent Arthur word that they would accept none of the gifts, but that they had come to give him gifts of strokes of sharpened swords upon his neck and shoulders, and for that reason they came there. So they told the messengers plainly, for it was a great shame to them all to see such a boy rule over so noble a realm as this land was. With this answer, the messengers departed, and told King Arthur that what the kings had said. Whereupon, by the advice of his barons, King Arthur betook himself to a strong tower with 500 good men, and all the aforementioned kings laid siege to the tower, but King Arthur was well provisioned. And within 15 days Merlin came into the city of Carlion, and appeared among these kings. Then were all these kings exceedingly happy to see Merlin, and they asked him, For what reason is that boy Arthur made your king? Sirs, said Merlin, I shall tell you the reason, for he is King Uther Pendragon's son, born in wedlock, begotten on Igraine, the wife of the Duke of Tintagel. Then he is a bastard, they all said. Nay, said Merlin, Arthur was begotten more than 3 hours after the death of the Duke, and 13 days later King Uther wedded Igraine, and thereby do I prove that he is no bastard. Regardless of whosoever says nay, Arthur shall be king of England, and will overcome all his enemies, and before he dies he shall be the long-time king of all England, and will have under his... never seen that word before. Under his obeisance, Wales, Ireland, and Scotland, and more realms than I shall now relate. This book is really fucking heavy. I'm not gonna lie, it's so fucking heavy. Now, where was I? Some of the kings marveled at Merlin's words, and believed that it would be as he said, and some of them laughed at him with scorn. King Lot and many others called him a wizard, but then did they reach accord with Merlin that King Arthur should come out and speak with the kings, and assurances were made for King Arthur's safe passage to come and go. So Merlin went unto King Arthur, and told him what he had arranged, and bade him to fear not. And Merlin said, Come out boldly, and speak with them, and spare them not, but answer them as their king and chieftain, for you shall overcome them all, whether they wish it or not. Then King Arthur came out of his tower, and he wore under his gown a coat of chainmail. With him there went the Archbishop of Canterbury, Sir Baldwin of Britain, Sir Kay, and Sir Brastias. These were the men of greatest honor who were there with Arthur. And when they were met with the opposition, there was no meekness, but stout words on both sides, and Arthur said again and again that he would make them bow to him if he lived. Whereupon the kings departed with wrath, but not before King Arthur bade them to keep well, and they bade King Arthur to keep well. So King Arthur returned to the tower, and armed himself and all his knights. What will you do? Said Merlin to the kings. You would be better advised to withdraw, for you shall not prevail here, though you were 10 times as many. Are we well advised to be afeard of a dream reader? Said King Lot. With that Merlin vanished away, and appeared before King Arthur, and bade him to set fiercely upon his foes. He literally just said, no, I'm just gonna fucking instant transmission out of there, appear before Arthur, and he's just like, fuck him up. fucking kill them, man. Man, I should do a translation of this. Sir, said Merlin to King Arthur, do not fight with the sword that you got miraculously until you see that the struggle goes badly. Then draw it out, and do your best. So forthwith King Arthur set upon his adversaries in their lodging, and Sir Baudwin, Sir Kay, and Sir Brastias slew so many on the right hand and on the left hand that it was a marvel to behold. And always King Arthur upon horseback laid on with a sword and did such wondrous feats of arms that many of the kings in his party had great joy in his deeds and hardiness. Then King Lock broke... King Lock? Lock. From fucking Tack and the Power of Juju. Then King Lot broke out on the backside, and the king with the 100 knights and King Carados fiercely assailed King Arthur from behind. With that, King Arthur wheeled about with his knights, and smote them from the back and the front. And ever was King Arthur in the foremost press of battle, till his horse was slain underneath him, whereupon King Lot smote down King Arthur, but 4 of his knights rescued King Arthur, and set him on the horseback. Then King Arthur drew out his sword Excalibur, and it was so bright in the eyes of his enemies that it gave off the light of 30 torches, and with this sword he set them back and slew many people. Then did the commoners of Carleon arise with clubs and staves, and they did slay many knights. At this the rebellious kings joined with their knights, who were still on the battlefield. And they fled and departed, and Merlin came unto Arthur, and counselled him to follow them no further. So after the feast and journey, King Arthur returned to London, and upon the advice of Merlin called his barons to council, for Merlin had told Arthur that the 6 kings who had made war upon him would soon take revenge on him and on his lands. Whereupon the king asked counsel of all his barons. They could give no counsel, they said, but affirmed that they were strong enough to do battle. You speak well, said King Arthur, and I thank you for your undaunted courage, but I will... My brain is just... But will you all who love me speak with Merlin? You know well that he has done much for me, and he knows many things. When he is before you, I wish that you would beseech him heartily for his best advice. All the barons said they would beseech him and ask him. So Merlin was sent for, and all the barons asked him to give them the best counsel. I shall tell you, said Merlin. I warn you all, your enemies are too strong for you. They are the best men of arms alive. By this time they have recruited 4 more kings and a mighty duke, unless our king can gather more knights to his side than he can find within the bounds of his own realm. If he does battle with his adversaries, he shall be overcome and slain. Then what is best to do in this case, said all the barons. I shall tell you, said Merlin. This is my advice. There are 2 brethren beyond the sea, and they are both kings and marvelously good men of arms. One is called King Ban of Benwick, and the other is called King Bors of Gaul, which is France. And against these 2 kings there battles a mighty leader of men, King Claudas. He strives against them for a castle, and there is a great war between them. But this King Claudas is so wealthy in goods that he can obtain the best knights, and thus King Ban and King Bors, for the most part, do get the worst of the conflict. Therefore, this is my counsel, that our king and sovereign lord Arthur send letters unto the kings Ban and Bors, by means of 2 trusty knights, and that if they come close, that it... Now, where was I? Oh, here we go. If they will come and see King Arthur in his court, and help him in his wars, then King Arthur will be sworn unto them, and to help them in their wars against King Claudas. Now what you say unto this counsel? This is well counselled, said the king and all the barons. And thus, in all haste, there were ordained 2 knights to go with this message unto the 2 kings. Anon letters were written to that effect, according to King Arthur's desire. Then Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias were chosen as the messengers, and so they rode forth well horsed and well armed, and they sailed across the sea, and rode toward the city of Benwick. And there did 8 knights espy them, and, at a narrow passage, they met with Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias, and would have taken them prisoners. But Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias prayed them that they might pass, for they said they were the messengers unto King Ban and King Bors, sent by King Arthur. For that reason, said the 8 knights, you shall die or become prisoners, for we are knights of King Claudas. And with this, 2 of the knights brandished their spears, and Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias brandished their spears, and they attacked each other with great fury. But Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias held their ground and broke the spears of King Claudas's knights, and knocked them out of their saddles, and left them lying there, and rode upon their way. Whereupon the other 6 knights rode on ahead to another passage in order to confront them again. And so Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias smote down another 2, and thus passed on their way. This befell one more time, and, at the 4th passage, they met 2 against 2, and the last 2 knights were laid unto the earth. So there remained none of the 8 knights who was not sorely hurt or bruised. And when Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias were come to Benwick, fortunate... What? What? Oh. All the words are starting to, run together, man. This is weird. Such a fat fucking book. Fortune ordained it that both kings, Ban and Bors, were there. When the kings were told that messengers had arrived, 2 worthy knights were sent to greet them. One knight was called Sir Lionses. Lionses? Leonses, lord of the country of Peorn, and the other was called Sir Fariance, an honorable knight. Anon they asked Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias where they came from, and they said they came from King Arthur, King of England. So they took them in their arms and made great joy of each other. And when the 2 kings knew they were messengers from King Arthur, there was no further tarrying. But forthwith did the 2 kings speak with Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias, and they embraced them most faithfully, and said that as representatives of King Arthur they were most welcome before those of all other living kings. Upon which Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias kissed the letters and delivered them unto King Ban and King Bors. And when King Ban and King Bors understood these letters, then were the messengers even more welcome than they were before. And considering the urgency of the letters, King Ban and King Bors gave the messengers this answer, that they would fulfill the desire of King Arthur's writing. Furthermore, Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias would tarry there as long as they wished, and they would have such cheer as they might procure in those precincts. Then Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias told the kings of their adventures in the passages with the 8 knights of King Claudas. Ha ha, said King Ban and King Bors. They were my good friends. I wish I had known of this. They would not have escaped so easily. So Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias had good cheer and great gifts, as much as they could carry away, and they had their answer, by mouth and by writing, that these 2 kings would come unto King Arthur with all the haste that they could manage. And thus the 2 knights rode on ahead, and crossed the sea, and came to their lord, and told him how they had succeeded in their mission, whereupon King Arthur was exceedingly glad. When do you suppose the 2 kings will be here? Said Arthur. Sir, they said, before All Saints' Day. Then the king gave commandments to prepare a magnificent feast, and proclaimed that the great joust should be held. And by All Saints' Day, the 2 kings Ban and Bors had come over the sea with 300 knights, well arrayed both for peace and for war. And King Arthur met with them 10 miles out of London, and there was great joy, as much as he could have imagined, as much as could be imagined or felt. On All Saints' Day, at the great feast, there in the great hall, the 3 kings and Sir Kay served as the steward, and Sir Lucan, who is the son of Duke Corneus, served as the butler, and also Sir Griflet, who is the son of Sir Cardel. These 3 knights had charge over all the service for the kings, and anon after they had washed and arisen, all the knights who had just made themselves ready. By then there was already 700 knights on horseback, and King Arthur, Ban, and Bors, together with the Archbishop of Canterbury and Sir Ector, Sir Kay's father, were seated in a pavilion covered with a cloth of gold like a hall, with ladies and gentlewomen, in order to behold who did best and to pass judgment thereon. Then did King Arthur and the 2 kings cause to form up the 700 knights into 2 parties, and there were 300 knights of the realm of Benwick and of Gaul turned on the other side. Then did many excellent knights dress their shields and make ready their spears, and Sir Griflet was the first to joust against the knight, one Sir Latinus, and they battled so fiercely that all men had wonder to see them. They fought so hard that their shields shattered into pieces, and horse and man fell to the earth. Both the French knight and the English knight lay so upon the ground that all men believed they were dead. When Sir Lucan the butler beheld Sir Griflet lie upon the ground, he helped him mount his horse again, and the 2 of them performed marvellous deeds of arms against many knights. Also Sir Kay, with his 5 knights, escaped an ambush, and those 6 smote down another 6. And Sir Kay, that day, accomplished so many valorous feats of arms that there was no one who did as well as he. Then came Sir Latinus again, and Sir Gracian, 2 knights of France, and they fought exceedingly well, so that all men praised them. Then there came Sir Placidus, a good knight, who jousted with Sir Kay and smote him down, horse and man. Whereupon Sir Grieflay was wrathful, and assailed Sir Placidus so hard that horse and man fell to the earth. And when Sir Kay's 5 knights perceived that Sir Kay had a fall, they were most enraged. And they were most enraged, and each of them brought down a knight. But when King Arthur and Knights Ban and Bors beheld both sides begin to grow wrathful, they jumped onto their horses and cried out that all men should depart upon their lodging. And so the knights went home and disarmed themselves, and went to Evan. There's so much weird shit I've never heard of. Then went to evensong and supper, and after the 3 kings went into a garden and gave the prize to Sir Kay and to Sir Lucan the butler and to Sir Grieflay, and then they went to the council, and with them went Sir Gwenbaus, the brother of King Ban and Bors, a wise scholar, together with Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias and Merlin, and after they had met in council, they went to bed. And on the morn they heard mass, and went to breakfast, and then to their council. And there they had many arguments as to what was best to do. At last they counselled that Merlin should go, carrying a token from King Ban, which was a ring unto the men of King Ban and Bors. And Sir Gracian and Placidus should travel with him, in order to defend their castles and their countries, as King Ban of Benwick and King Bors of Gaul had commanded them. And thus they crossed the sea and came to Benwick. And when the people saw King Ban's ring and Sir Gracian and Sir Placidus, they were glad, and asked how the kings fared, and made great joy of their well-being in accord with King Arthur. And in keeping with their sovereign lord's desire, the men of war made themselves ready with all possible haste. When this was done, they were 15,000 strong on horse and foot, and they had plenty of victuals with them, upon Merlin's advice. But Sir Gracian and Sir Placidus were left behind to garrison and provision the castles, from fear of King Claudas. Oh, my back. My back. My back is in pain. Whew. Let me, I'm gonna fix my chair. This is, like, hurting my back. Oh, too low. Up here. What are you doing on the floor? Whew. 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 There's so much. All right, where was I? Let's see. And so Merlin and his army journeyed on, and when he came to the sea, he sent home the foot soldiers, and took no more with him than 10,000 men on horseback, for the most part men of arms, and sailed across the sea to England, and it landed at Dover. Then, by means of his cunning, Merlin led the host northward by the most stealthy way that could be found, unto the forest of Migraine. It's actually called Bedegrain, or it's called Bedegrain or Beatgreen? Beatgrain, yeah. Beatgrain. And there in a valley he lodged them secretly. Then Merlin rode unto King Arthur and the two kings, and related to them how he had accomplished this deed, whereupon they marveled greatly, that any man on this earth might travel so speedily, and go and come with so little effort. And Merlin told them that 10,000 mounted warriors were stationed in the forest of Beatgrain, well armored for battle. Then was there no more to say, but on horseback all the army went to assemble together, as King Arthur had ordered. So with 20,000 men did King Arthur pass night and day, and Merlin issued an ordinance that no man of war should ride nor go in any country this side of Trent water, unless he was... Fuck me. Fuck me. This is hard. This is really hard. Unless he had leave from King Arthur to do so, for the king's enemies dared not ride through this land to spy as they did before. I think I'm getting close to the end of this chapter here. That's right, we're still in chapter 1. Oh no, I'm not that close to the end of the chapter. I'm really not. Holy fuck. Yeah, no, never mind. I'm nowhere near the end of the chapter. And so, within a short space of time, the three kings came to the castle of Beatgrain, and they found their gracious welcome, for which they had great joy, and they wanted nothing of nourishment. This was the cause of This was the cause of the northern forces. They were recruited because of the insult and rebuke that the 6 kings had received at Carleon, and those 6 kings, by their means, marshaled unto themselves 5 other kings, and thus did they begin to gather their armies. And they swore that despite prosperity or woe, they would not desert each other till they had destroyed Arthur. Whereupon they did all swear an oath. The first one to make the oath that... This is hard. The first one to make the oath was the Duke of Cambrai, who vowed that he would bring with him 5,000 men of arms, which were ready on horseback. Then swore... You fucking kidding me? King Brandagorus... Brandagori... Strangor... That he would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. Then swore King Clairvaux of Northumberland. I think it's Northumberland. That he would bring 3,000 men of arms. Then swore the King of the 100 Knights, who was a very good man and young, that he would bring 4,000 men of arms on horseback. Then swore King Lot, a surpassingly good knight and Sir Gawaine's father, that he would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. Also there swore King Urien of the land of Gore, who was the father of Sir Uwaine, that he would bring 6,000 men of arms on horseback. Also there swore King Idris of Cornwall, that he would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. Also there swore... Fuck me! King Cardamon, that he would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. Also there swore King... This is just fucking stupid. King Aguisance of Ireland, that he would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. Also there swore King Nintre, that he would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. Also, there swore King Carados that he would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. I literally thought it was going to keep going through the entire book. So-and-so would bring 5,000 men of arms on horseback. Aren't old writers so fucking funny? They write like a high schooler trying to make word count for an essay. And thus their entire host consisted of 50,000 good men of arms on horseback and 10,000 good men of arms on foot. Then was this army soon made ready and mounted upon horses, whereupon they sent forth their scouts, for these 11 kings would lay siege to the castle of Beedgrain, and after they had begun to besiege the castle, they withdrew the greater part of their forces and departed to pursue King Arthur, leaving a few of their numbers to abide at the siege, for the castle of Beedgrain was loyal to King Arthur, and the men who were inside the castle were King Arthur's. This is so fucking hard. Can I point my camera? Can I get this fixed a little bit? I wonder if that's going to be any better. So upon Merlin's advice, scouts were sent out to scour the countryside, and there they did chance to surprise and overcome the scouts of the north, whereupon they forced the scouts of the north to reveal which way their army would come, and then they told this intelligence to King Arthur. Let me try and hold the book differently, maybe that'll help. Therefore, by the counsel of King Ban and King Bors, the city were ordered to burn and destroy all the country before them, wherever they should ride. And 2 nights before the battle, the king with 100 knights had a wondrous dream. He dreamed that there blew across the land a mighty wind, which devastated their castles and their towns. And after that there came a great flood, which washed everything away. All those who heard of this vision affirmed that it betokened a great battle. Then by the counsel of Merlin, when they knew which way the 11 kings would ride, and where they would make camp that night at midnight, King Arthur's forces set upon them as they slept in their pavilions. But, upon seeing the attack, the guards sounded the alarm, crying out, "Lords, to arms! For here be your enemies at hand!" Then King Arthur and King Ban and King Bors, with their good and trusty knights, set upon their opponents so fiercely that their pavilions fell down upon their heads. But the 11 kings, by manly prowess of arms, put up a spirited defense, and by morning time 10,000 brave soldiers had been slain, and so they had before them a difficult task. Yet they were hardy men. Then did the night draw toward day. "Now you shall do as I advise," said Merlin unto the 3 knights. "I want King Ban and King Bor with their fellowship of 10,000 men to be placed in the woods nearby, to await an ambush and kept hidden, and to wait there till the light of day comes. They must not stir until King Arthur and his knights have long done battle with the adversary, and then, when it is daylight, dress your ranks in battle array before them, so that they may behold all your host. For then will they be more emboldened when they see that you are not but 10,000, and then will they be glad to permit you and your soldiers to come over the passage." All 3 kings and all the barons said that Merlin had advised well, and it was done anon as Merlin had counselled. And so on the morn when each my tongue is I puffed it up, my tongue is going on my head. My palm hurts. This book is really heavy. It's really heavy. I'm not gonna lie. It's so fucking heavy, and I can't lean it. Okay. Now, where was I? All 3 camp. So on the morn, when each force espied the other, the army of the north was well comforted. Whereupon to Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias were delivered 3,000 men of arms, and they set upon their foes so boldly in the passage, and slew so many on the right hand and on the left hand, that it was a wonder to tell. And when the 11 kings saw that so few a fellowship performed such devastating deeds of arms, they were ashamed, and forcefully attacked them again. At this time Sir Ulfius's horse was slain under him, and he fought marvelously well on foot. However, the Duke Eustace of Cambrai... Fuck these names, man. Fuck these names. Of Cambrai and King Clarivis of Northumberland always bore rancor against Sir Ulfius, and sorely abused him. Thus when Sir Brastias saw his fellow so ill used, he smote the Duke with a spear, and horse and man fell to the ground. When King Clarivis saw this, he turned the page. He turned towards Sir Brastias, and both smote the other so hard that the horse and men went to the earth, and there they lay stunned for a long while. Their horses' knees burst to the bare bone. Then Sir Kay the steward rode into battle with his fellows, and he fought surpassingly well. And then came the 11 kings, and there was Sir Grieflay on horse. Then Sir Lucan the butler was unhorsed by King Brandegoris, and King Idris, and King Aguisance, 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 Aguisance. These names, man. Then the conflict became very hard on both parties. When Sir Kay beheld Sir Grieflay on foot, he rode upon King Nintre and smote him down. And then Sir Kay led the horse unto Sir Grieflay and horsed him again. Also Sir Kay, with the same spears, smote down King Lot, and hurt him quite severely. The king with the 100 knights saw that, and rode up to Sir Kay, and smote him down, and took his horse and gave it to King Lot, for which favour he said many thanks. And then Sir Grieflay saw Sir Kay and Sir Lucan, the butler, on foot. He grasped a sharp spear, great and stout, and charged toward Sir Penel, a good man of arms, and smote horse and man down. And then he took that horse and gave it to Sir Kay. When King Lot saw King Nitris on foot, he rode unto Sir Mila. Fuck me, here we go again. Alright, it's Sir Malo de la Roche. Sir Malo de la Roche. And smote him down, horse and man, and gave King Nitris the horse, and horsed him again. Also, the king with 100 knights saw King Idris on foot, whereupon he ran into Sir Gwyneth de Blois, and smote him down, horse and man, and gave King Idris the horse, and horsed him again. And King Lot smote down Sir Clare... Fuck me. Smote down Sir Clariance de la Forest Savage. De la Forest Savage. Oh, God. And gave his horse unto Duke Eustace. And so, when all the 11 kings were mounted once again, they drew together and swore they would be avenged for the damage they had received that day. In the meanwhile, in came King Arthur with a fierce countenance, and found Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias on foot, in great peril of death, for they were in danger of being trampled under the horses' hoofs. Whereupon King Arthur, as ferocious as a lion, ran unto King Crandall of North Wales, and smote him through the left side, so that horse and king fell down. And then King Arthur took that horse by the reins, and led it unto Sir Ulfius, and said, Take this horse, my old friend, for I see that you have great need of a mount. Many thanks, said Sir Ulfius. Then King Arthur fought so marvellously well at arms that all men had wonder of it. And when the king with the 100 knights perceived King Crandall it's Crandall-Ment. Fuck me. I am professional. Yes. King with the 100 knights perceived King Crandall-Ment afoot, and ran unto Sir Ector, who was well horsed, and smote horse and man down. Whereupon he gave the horse to King Crandall-Ment, and horsed him again. But then King Arthur saw the king with the 100 knights ride against Sir Ector's horse, and was wrathful, and with his sword he smote the king upon the helmet, so that a quarter of helmet and shield were cut off and fell down, and King Arthur's sword carved deep in the horse's neck, and the king and horse fell to the ground. Then Sir Kay rode unto Sir Morganor, steward of the king of the 100 knights, and unhorsed him, and led the horse unto his father, Sir Ector. And then Sir Ector ran to a knight called Sir Ladron, and smote horse and man down, and led the horse to Sir Brastias, who had great need of a horse, and was sorely afflicted. Whereupon Sir Brastias beheld Sir Lucan the butler lie like a dead man under the horse's hooves, while Sir Grieflay tried mightily to rescue him, for there were 14 knights attacking Sir Lucan. So Sir Brastias struck one of the knights on his helmet, and drove the blade through his head into his teeth. Then Sir Brastias rode up to another, and smote him so hard that the knight's arm flew into the field. And then Sir Brastias went to a third knight, and smote him on the shoulder, so that shoulder and arm fell to the ground. And when Sir Grieflay saw his rescuer fight so valiantly, he smote a knight on his temple so hard that the head and helmet fell to the earth. Then Sir Grieflay took the horse of that fallen knight and led it unto Sir Lucan, and bade him mount the horse and avenge his injuries. Then Sir Lucan saw Sir... My eyes hurt. Okay. Pop my back real quick. Okay. Then Sir Lucan saw King Aguisance, who had just slain Sir Maurice de la Roche, and Sir Lucan ran up to him with a short spear and gave him such a blow that his horse fell to the earth. Also Sir Lucan then espied on foot Sir Belias of Flanders and Sir Gwinus, two of his hardy knights, and, driven by an insane rage, Sir Lucan slew two opposing knights and horsed his comrades again. Then the battle grew surpassingly hard on both parties, so King Arthur was glad that his knights were horsed again. And then the adversaries fought so fiercely that all the woods and the waters resounded with the clash of battle. Whereupon King Ban and King Bors readied their forces and ordered them to dress their shields and armor, and their knights were so resolute that they fairly shook and trembled with anticipation. All this while Sir Lucan and Sir Gwinus and Sir Brian... Sir Brian... Brian, Sir Brian. Hey, Brian. And Sir Belias of Flanders did contest strongly against 6 kings, that is, King Lot, King Nentre, King Brandegoris, King Idris, King Urien, and King Aguisance. So with the help of Sir Kay, they pressed these 6 kings to vigorously that they scarcely had any power to defend themselves. But when King Arthur saw that the battle would not soon be ended in any manner, he grew as mad as a lion, and steered his horse here and there, on the right hand and on the left hand, and he did not stop till he had killed 20 knights. Then he wounded King Lot sorely on the shoulder, and caused him to leave the battleground. And Sir Kay and Sir Grieflay performed with King Arthur on that field many valorous deeds of arms. Then Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias and Sir Ector engaged in combat against Duke Eustace and King Crandalment and King Clarivis of Northumberland and King Carados and the king with 100 knights. And King Arthur's knights fought so bravely that they forced the opposing kings to retreat from the field of battle, whereupon King Lot expressed much grief for his losses and those of his comrades. And he said unto his 10 fellow kings, Unless you do as I devise, we shall be slain and destroyed. Let me have the king with 100 knights, and King Aguisance, and King Idris, and the Duke of Cambrai. I've got to be saying that wrong. We 5 kings will have 15,000 men of arms with us, and we will ride apart while you 6 kings make war with your 12,000 soldiers. And when we see that you have fought with the enemy for a long time, then will we attack fiercely. Otherwise we shall never match them, save by this strategy. So they parted as they had agreed, and the 6 kings waged strong war against King Arthur, and they engaged in a long vicious fight. In the meanwhile, King Ban and King Bors unleashed their ambush, and Sir Lynsus and Sir Phariance took the vanguard thereof. These 2 knights contested against King Idris and his fellowship, and there began a mighty battle of breaking of spears and smiting of swords, with much slaying of men and horses, whereupon King Idris was most discomfited. What? Discomfited. But King Aguisance's... What? But King Aguisance... Aguisance... beheld this, and he advanced with his warriors and put Sir Lionses and Sir Fariance to the point of death, for the Duke of Cambenet had come on to assist him with a powerful force. At this, Sir Leonsis and Sir Fariance, who were in a great peril of their lives, marvelously rescued themselves and their men by withdrawing. When King Bors beheld these knights pull back, it grieved him sorely. Then he came on with his force so fast that his men seemed as black as indigo. And when King Lot espied King Bors, he knew him well, because he then said, O Jesus, defend us from death and grievous wounds, for I see well that we are in great danger of being slain. I see yonder a king, one of the most honorable of men, and one of the best knights in the world. Who is he? Said the king, with 100 knights. He is King Bors of Gaul, said King Lot. I wonder how he and his men were able to come into the country without our knowledge. I believe it was by Merlin's counsel, said the king with 100 knights. As to this matter, said King Carados, I will engage in combat with King Bors, and you will rescue me if need arises. It's like a weird crick in my back. Do so, said the kings, and we shall do all we can to assist you. Whereupon King Carados and his host rode on to a slow pace till they came as near to King Bors as the flight of an arrow. Then both battalions charged each other as fast as their horses could run, and Sir Bleoberis, who is godson of King Bors, carried the king's main battle flag into the fray. He was a very good knight. Now shall we see how well these northern Britons can bear arms, said King Bors, and he fought a knight and smote him with a spear, so that he fell dead unto the earth. Then King Bors drew his sword and did such marvelous deeds of arms that all parties had great wonder thereof, and his knights failed not, but did their part, and King Carados was smitten to the earth. With that, the king with 100 knights came on and rescued King Carados with a mighty force of arms, for he was a surpassing good knight of a king, though he was but a young man. By then King Ban came onto the field, as fierce as a lion, with bands of green and gold upon his shield and his banner. Aha, said King Lot, we shall be defeated without doubt, for yonder I see the most valiant knight in the world, and the man of greatest renown. The likes of two such brethren as King Ban and King Bors were not alive today. Therefore we must abandon the battlefield or die. And if we do not retreat in a manly and prudent manner, there is nothing but death for us. When King Ban came into the battle, he came in so fiercely that the clash of combat resounded once more through all the woods and the waters, whereupon King Lot wept for compassion and sorrow when he saw so many good knights meet their end. But because of the overwhelming force of King Ban's army, both northern battalions who had fled the field banded together from great fear, and the three kings and their knights continued to slay their adversaries, so that it was a pity to behold the multitude of people who fled or were killed. However, King Lot and the king with 100 knights and King Morganor gathered their warriors together in a surpassing knightly fashion, and performed great prowesses of arms, and sustained the battle equally hard through all that day. And when the king with 100 knights beheld the great damage that King Ban had done, he thrust unto him with his horse, and gave him a hearty stroke upon the helmet, and stunned him sorely. Then was King Ban wrathful toward him, and charged him furiously. The king with the 100 knights saw that, and held up his shield and spurred his horse forward. But the stroke of King Ban's sword came down hard and carved off a corner of the shield, and the sword slid down through the armor behind his back, and cut through the horse and its armor of steel, and sliced it in two, and the sword fell to the earth. At this, the king with the 100 knights quickly leaped off his horse, and with his sword he pierced the horse of King Ban through and through. With that, King Ban jumped from his dead horse, and then smote the other upon his helmet so strongly that he fell to the earth. And then, in his ire, King Ban felled King Morganor, and there was great slaughter of good knights and many people. By this time King Arthur came into the fray, and he found King Ban standing among dead men and dead horses, fighting on foot as fiercely as a mad lion, so that no opponent dared come near him within reach of his sword blade. But King Ban had suffered a dreadful blow, for which King Arthur had great pity. And King Arthur was so bloody that no man could recognize him, except by the insignia on his shield, for all was blood and brains and gore on his body and his sword. As King Arthur looked about him, he perceived a knight who was very well horsed, and with this King Arthur ran to him and smote him on the helmet, so hard that the sword went into his teeth, and the knight sank down dead to the earth. And anon King Arthur took the horse by the reins and led it to King Ban, and he said, Fair brother, take this horse, for you have great need thereof, and I sorely lament your grievous injury. It shall be soon revenged, said King Ban, for I trust to God my destiny is such that my enemies shall surely come to repent of this. I know that well, said King Arthur, for I have witnessed your heroic feats of arms. Nevertheless, I may not be able to come to you at that time. But when King Ban was once again mounted on horseback, and then there began a new battle which was fierce and hard fought, with great slaughter of men, and, at the end of this, by means of skilful maneuver, King Arthur, King Ban, and King Bors had their knights withdraw over a little river to a little woods, and there they rested them, for they would have no rest that night in the field. But always the 11 kings with their cavalry never turned back, and they pressed King Arthur's forces relentlessly. No man could surpass them. They held themselves as tightly together, both in front and in back, that King Arthur marveled at their feats of arms, and was very angry. Ah, King Arthur, said King Ban and King Bors, blame them not, because they do as good men ought to. For, by my faith, said King Ban, they are the best fighting men that knights of great prowess that I ever saw or ever... Dialogue is so hard. Knights of greatest prowess that I ever saw or heard speak of, and those 11 kings are men of great honor. If they belonged to you, there would be no king under heaven who had such 11 subjects, and of such worth. Yet I may not love them, said King Arthur, because they would destroy me. That we know well, said King Ban and King Bors, for they are your mortal enemies, and that has surely been proven today. And this day they have done their best, and that is the great pity of their wilfulness. Then all the 11 kings drew together, and King Lot said, Lords, we must pursue other ways than we have done heretofore, or else our great losses are for naught. For you may see how many people we have lost, and what good men we lose, because we always protect the foot soldiers, and, in saving one of our foot soldiers, we lose 10 horsemen for him. Therefore, this is my advice. Let us separate our foot soldiers from us, for it is nearly night. The noble King Arthur will not tarry for the foot soldiers. Arm's getting tired again. Let me, do something slightly... Ugh. I need, a book stand or something. Or maybe I could lean back. Oh. I'm getting kind of cozy, I'm not gonna lie. The noble King Arthur will not tarry for the foot soldiers. Let me, do one thing real quick. Just trying to get comfy. That should look a little bit better. Okay. Ooh, yeah. Fuck. I just like saying that. Okay. The noble King Arthur will not tarry for the foot soldiers. They may save themselves, for the woods are near at hand. And when we horsemen are together, see that each of you kings command that none break away upon pain of death. And if you see any man prepare to flee, swiftly slay him. For it is better that he slay a coward than, because of a coward, we all are slain. How say you? Answer me, all you kings. It is well said, said King Nintres, and so said the king with the 100 knights. The same said King Carados and King Urien. So did King Idris and King Brandigoris. And so did King Crandalment and the Duke of Cambonay. The same said King Clariance and King Aguisnes. And they all swore they would never fail each other, neither for life nor for death, and those who fled should be slain. Then they arranged their armor and righted their shields, and took new spears, and set them upon their thighs, and stood stock still, as if they had been carved out of a block of wood. When King Arthur and King Ban and King Bors beheld their foes and all their knights, they greatly praised them for their gallant countenance of chivalry, and of the great and of the hardiest fighters they ever heard or saw. With that, 40 intrepid knights readied themselves, and said unto the 3 kings that they would enter into battle. These were their names: Sir Lionsus, Sir Fariance, Sir Ulfius, Sir Brastius, Sir Ector, Sir Kay, Sir Lucan the Butler, Sir Griffle le Fuck me! Sir Griffle le Fils de Dieu, Sir Maurice de la Roche, Sir Gwynnes de Blois, Sir Brian de la Forest Savage, Sir Belias, Sir Morians of the Castle of Maidens, Sir Flanadrus of the Castle of Ladies, Sir Anakians, who was King Bor's godson, a noble knight, Sir Ladnus de la Rouse, Sir Emraus, Sir Cowlus, Sir Gracian de Castellan, Sir Blois de la Case, and Sir Sir Colgrevance de Gore. I should have taken French in high school. All these knights rode on ahead with spears on their thighs, spurring their horses as fast as they could gallop. At this, the 11 kings, with part of their knights, charged forward on their mounts as fast as they might, brandishing their spears. And there did both sides perform marvelous deeds of arms. So then there came into the thick of the struggle King Arthur and King Ban and King Bors, and blood up to their fetlocks. Wait, no, I skipped a line. And they killed countless number with both hands, so that their horses were drenched in blood up to their fetlocks. But the 11 kings and their hosts never ceased to confront King Arthur, for which King Ban and King Bors marveled greatly, considering the terrible slaughter that there was. And at last King Arthur and his men were driven back over a little river. With that, in rode Merlin on a great black horse, and he said unto King Arthur, You never relent. Have you not done enough killing? Of 60,000 men you have left alive, but 15,000 this day. Now is it time to say, Halt! God is wrathful towards you, because you will not cease your fighting. Yonder 11 kings cannot be overthrown at this time. If you persist in contesting them any longer, fortune will turn against you and your adversaries, and your adversary's advantage shall augment. Therefore, withdraw into your lodging and rest as soon as you may. Reward your good knights with gold and with silver, for they well deserved it. There are no riches too dear for them, because of the few men you have remaining. There were never warriors more courageous in battle than those who have fought today, for you have marched this day with the best fighters in the world. That is the truth, said King Ban and King Bors. Withdraw where you please, said Merlin. I affirm that the 11 kings will not come against you for the next 3 years, and by then you shall hear new tidings. And then Merlin said unto King Arthur, These 11 kings have more on their hands than they are aware of, for the Muslims have landed in their countries, greater than 40,000 strong, and they burn and slay, and have laid siege to the castle. Oh, fuck me. Wandaboro, and wreak great destruction. Therefore, fear not for the space of these 3 years. Also, sir, all the goods that you have won in this battle, let them be gathered, and when you have them in your hands, let them be given freely unto these 2 kings, Ban and Bors, so that they may reward their knights with it. That generosity shall cause strangers to be more favorably disposed to do you service than you would have need of it. In addition, you will be able to reward your own knights from your treasure when it pleases you. That is well spoken, said King Arthur, and as you have advised, so shall it be done. And when the spoils of war were delivered to King Ban and King Bors, they gave the goods as freely unto their knights as it was given to them. Then Merlin took his leave of King Arthur and to the 2 kings, in order to go and see his master Blois, who dwelt in Northumberland. And so he departed and came to his master, who was very glad of his arrival. And there Merlin told his master how King Arthur and the two kings had fared at the great battle, and how it was ended, and told them the names of every worthy king and knight who was there. Whereupon Blois wrote down the battle word by word as Merlin related it unto him, how it began and by whom, and in likewise how it was ended, and who had the worst of it. All the battles that were fought in King Arthur's days did Merlin have his master Blois inscribe. Also Blois wrote all of the battles with every valiant knight of King Arthur's court did fight. After this Merlin departed from his master and journeyed unto King Arthur, who was in the castle of Bedegraine. Bedegraine or Bedegraine? Bedegraine or Bedegraine? Bedegraine or Bedegraine? Where was I? No, seriously, where was I? Shit. Here we go. That was one of the castles which stood in the forest of Sherwood. However, Merlin was so disguised that King Arthur did not recognize him, for he was apparelled in black sheepskins, and a great pair of boots, and a russet gown, armed with bow and arrow, and he brought wild geese in his hands. It was on the morn after Candlemas Day, but King Arthur knew him not. Sir, said Merlin unto the king, will you give me a gift? Why should I give you a gift, scoundrel? Said King Arthur. Sir, said Merlin, you would be better off to give me a gift than it is not in your own hand. This is hard. You would be better off to give me a gift that is not in your hand than to lose untold riches. For here, in the same place where the great battle was fought, there is a great treasure hidden in the earth. Who told you so, scoundrel? Said Arthur. Merlin told me so, said he. Then Sir Ulfius and Sir Brastias recognized Merlin well enough, and they smiled. Sir, said these two knights, it is Merlin who speaks thus unto you. Then was King Arthur greatly abashed, and he marvelled at Merlin, and so did King Ban and King Bors, and they all had great sport at this. So, in the meanwhile, there came a damsel, who was the daughter of an earl. His name was Sir Sanam, and her name was Lenore, and she was a very comely maiden, and she had come there to pay homage unto Arthur, as other lords did after the great battle, whereupon King Arthur set his love greatly upon her, and so did she upon him, and the king had congress with her, and begat on her a child. The child's name was Bor, and he grew up to be a good knight, and one of the Round Table. That was a lot, just in one paragraph. Then there came word that King Rience of North Wales made great war on Lodgriance of Camelard, for which King Arthur was wrathful, because King Arthur loved Lord Lodgriance and hated King Rience, for he was always against him. In the meantime, by ordinance of the three kings, it was decided that Sir Fariance and Sir Antimus and Sir Gracian and Sir Leonsis of Payarn, this is hard, with their men, should depart for Benwick from fear of King Claudas, and these leaders would keep and defend the lands of King Ban and King Bors. And then King Arthur and King Ban and King Bors departed with their troops, some 20,000 men, and within 6 days came into the country of Camelard. There they rescued King Lodgriance, and slew many warriors of King Rience, as many as 10,000 men, and put him to flight. Whereupon King Lodgriance was very pleased, and he thanked them for their manifest goodness, and that they did avenge him upon his enemies. There did King Arthur have his first sight of Guinevere, the daughter of the King of Camelard, and ever did he love her. Later they were wedded, as it is told in the French book. So, briefly to make an end of this, King Ban and King Bors took their leave to go unto their own country, for King Claudas did great destruction upon their lands. Then said King Arthur, I will go with you. Nay, said the kings, you shall not at this time, for you still have much to do in your lands. Therefore we will depart, and with the abundant wealth we have gotten here by your gifts, we shall recruit good knights, and wage steadfast war in order to withstand King Claudas's malice. If by the grace of God we have need, we will send to you for your help. And if you have need, send for us, and we will not tarry by the faith of our bodies. There will be no need for these two kings to return here by way of war, said Merlin. But I know well that King Arthur will not be long parted from you, for within a year or two you shall have great need of him, and then will he avenge you against your enemies, as you have done against his. For these 11 kings shall all die in one day by the overwhelming might and prowess of 2 valiant knights, as will later be related. Their names are Sir Balin le Savage, and Sir Balan his brother, and they are the best knights of any now living. Now we turn to the 11 kings, who returned unto a city that was called Sorhaut and Gore, which the city was in the land of King Urien. They refreshed themselves as well as they could, and had physicians attend to their wounds, and sorrowed greatly for the death of their people. With that, there arrived a messenger, who told them that their lands had been invaded by lawless Muslims, some 40,000, that they had burnt and slain all the people they did encounter, without mercy, and they have laid siege to the castle of Wandesboro. Why that word again? Wandesboro. Alas, said the 11 kings, here is sorrow upon sorrow. If we had not warred against King Arthur as we have done, he would soon avenge us. As for King Leodegrance, he loves King Arthur better than us, and as for King Rience, he has enough to do with King Leodegrance, for he has laid a siege against him. So they consented together to defend all the regions of Cornwall, of Wales, and of the north. Thus first they put King Idris in the city of Nantes in Brittany, with 4,000 men of arms to watch both the water and the land. Also, they put in the city of Windesan, King Nintries of Garlot, with 4,000 knights watch both on water and land. To watch both on water and land. Also, they dispatched more than 8,000 other men of war to fortify all the fortresses in the region of Cornwall. Also, they put more knights in all the regions of Wales and Scotland with many good men of arms. And so they kept vigilant watch together for the space of 3 years, and ever allied themselves with mighty kings and dukes and lords. But King Rience of North Wales, who was a mighty man of men, and Sir Nero, brother of King Rience, who was also a mighty man of men, waged unending war against them. And all this while they furnished themselves and fortified themselves with good men of arms, and provisions, and all manner of weapons and armor that appertain to combat, in order to avenge themselves for the battle of Beedgreen, as it relates in the French book of adventures which follow. Then, after the departure of King Ban and King Bors, King Arthur rode unto Carleon, and there came to him the wife of King Lot of Orkney, as if to deliver a message. But she was, in truth, sent there to spy upon the court of King Arthur, and she came richly attired with her 4 sons, Sir Gawain, Sir Garhai, Sir Agravain, and Sir Gareth, accompanied by many other knights and ladies, and she was so very comely lady, for which reason the king had great love for her, and desired to lie with her. So they were agreed, and he begat upon her Mordred. But he did not know that she was his sister on his mother's side. So there she rested a month, and at last she departed. And then the king had a monstrous dream, whereof he was sorely afeard. But all this time King Arthur knew not that King Lot's wife was his sister. Thus was the dream of Arthur. He imagined that griffins and serpents had come into this land, and he dreamed that they burned and slaughtered all the people in the land. And then he thought he fought with them, and they did him very great harm, and wounded him very badly, but at last he slew them. When the king awakened, he was greatly distressed by his dream, and to put it out of his mind, he made himself ready with many knights to ride out upon a hunt. And as soon as he was in the forest, he beheld a magnificent stag before him. I will chase this stag, said King Arthur. And so he put the spur of his mount and rode after the stag for a long while. Heretofore, by his skill, he was most likely to hit the stag, but this time King Arthur chased the stag for so long a distance that his horse lost its breath and fell down dead. Then a yeoman fetched the king another horse. When the king saw the stag escaped into the forest, and with his horse dead, he set himself down by a fountain, and there he fell into deep thought. As he sat thus, he dreamed he heard the baying of some 30 hounds, and with that the king saw coming forward him the strangest beast that he ever saw or heard of. So the beast went to the well and drank thereof, and the sound was in the beast's belly, like the barking of 30 dogs. Then the beast departed with a resounding noise, at which the king marveled greatly. And then King Arthur was lost in thought, and therewith he fell asleep. Just then there came a knight afoot, and he said unto King Arthur, Knight full of thought and sleep, tell me if you saw a strange beast pass this way. Such a one did I see, said King Arthur, that is past 2 miles. What would you do with that beast? Sir, said the knight, I have followed that beast for such a long time that I have killed my horse. Would be to God that I had another mount to pursue my quest. Just then a squire came with the king's horse, and when the king beheld the horse, he beseeched King Arthur to give it to him. And he said, I have followed this beast for 12 months, neither I shall achieve it or bleed of the best blood of my body. King Pellinore was this man's name, who was at that time followed the questing beast, and after his death Sir Palomides followed it. Sir Knight, said King Arthur, leave that quest and allow me to have it, and I will follow the questing beast another 12 months. Ah, fool, said the knight under King Arthur, your desire is in vain, for it shall never be achieved but by me or my next of kin. With that, the knight grasped King Arthur's horse and mounted upon the saddle, and said, Great thanks, for this horse is now my own. Well, said King Arthur, you may take my horse by force, but I want to know which of us is the better on horseback. Seek me here whenever you wish, said the knight, and here near this well you shall find me. And with that the king continued on his way. The King Arthur dreamed he sat in a study, and he bade his men to fetch his horse as fast as they could. Just then Merlin came to him in the form of a child of 14 years of age, and he saluted the king, and asked him why he was so pensive. I may well be pensive, said the king, for I have seen the most marvelous sight that I ever saw. That I know well, said Merlin, as well as yourself, for I know all your thoughts, but you are a fool to think upon it, because it will not amend you. Also I know who you are, and who was your father, and of whom you were begotten. King Uther Pendragon was your father, and he begat you on Igraine. That is false, said King Arthur. How can you know this? You are not as old in years as to know my father. It is true, said Merlin. I know it better than you or any man living. I will not believe you, said King Arthur, and he was angry with the child. Whereupon Merlin disappeared, and he reappeared in the likeness of an old man of 80 years of age, at which the king was very glad, for the old man seemed to be quite wise. Then the old man said, Why are you so sad? I may very well be sad, said King Arthur. For many reasons a child was just here, and he told me many things that it seemed to me he should not have known, for he was not of the age to know my father. Yes, said the old man, the child told you the truth, and he would have told you more if you would have allowed him. But you have lately done a thing so heinous that God is displeased with you, for you have lain with your sister, and upon her have you begotten a child who will destroy you and all the knights of your realm. What are you, said King Arthur, who tells me these tidings? I am Merlin, said he, and I was the one in the child's likeness. Ah, said King Arthur, you are a marvelous man, but I wonder greatly at your words that I must die in battle. Wonder not, said Merlin, for it is God's will that your body be punished for your foul deeds. But I may well be sorry for these words, because I shall die a shameful death, to be buried in the earth while still alive, and you shall die an honorable death. As they talked thus, a servant came with the king's horse, and so the king mounted this horse and Merlin on another, and they rode unto Carleon. And anon the king asked if Sir Ector and Sir Ulfius know how he was begotten, and they told him that Uther Pendragon was his father, and Queen Igraine was his mother. Then King Arthur said to Merlin, I wish that my mother be sent for, so that I may speak with her. If she says so herself, then I will believe it. In all haste was the queen sent for, and she came forthwith, and she brought with her Morgan le Fay, her daughter, who is as fair as the lady might be, and the king welcomed Igraine in the most gracious manner. Just then things are a little bit hard when you read this kind of stuff, you know? It can be a little difficult, not gonna lie. Whew. Just then in came Sir Ulfius, and he said openly, so that the king and all those who were there at the feast that day could hear his words, You are the most false lady in the world, and the most traitorous unto the king's person. Beware, said King Arthur, of what you say, for you speak a dangerous word. I am well aware of what I say, said Sir Ulfius, and here is my glove to prove it, and to challenge any man who dare say the contrary. This Queen Igraine is the cause of your great strife, of your great war. For if she had proclaimed it during the lifetime of King Uther Pendragon, of your birth, and how you were begotten, you would never have fought the mortal wars which you have fought. Most of the barons of your realm never knew whose son you were, nor of whom you were begotten. And she who bore of you of her body would have made it known openly to all the realm, in excusing her honor and yours. Therefore, I accuse her of being false to God and to you and to all your realm, and whosoever says the contrary, I will prove it on his body. Then spoke Igraine, and she said, I am a woman, and I may not fight, but rather than that I should be dishonored. Will not some good man take my side in this quarrel? Moreover, Merlin knows me well, and also you, Sir Ulfius, how King Uther came to me in the castle of Tintagel in the likeness of my lord, who was dead 3 hours before, and thereby begat a child upon me that night. And after the 13th day King Uther wedded me, and by his commandment, when the child was born, it was delivered unto Merlin, and raised by him, so that I never saw the child after, nor knew what was his name, and I still do not know him to this day. And then Sir Ulfius said to the queen, So Merlin is more to blame than you. Well, I know, said the queen, that I bore a child by my lord King Uther, but I do not know what has become of him. Then King Merlin took King Arthur by the hand, saying, This is your mother. And therewith Sir Ector bore witness how he reared Arthur by King Uther's commandment, whereupon King Arthur took his mother Queen Igraine in his arms and kissed her, and each one wept upon the other. And then the king proclaimed a feast that had lasted 8 days. Then one day there came into the court a squire on horseback, leading a knight behind him, wounded to the death. And the squire told them that there was a knight in the forest who had raised a pavilion by a well. And the squire said, That knight slew my master, a good knight whose name was Sir Miles. Therefore I beseech you that my master may be buried, and that some knight may avenge my master's death. The uproar in the court was great concerning that knight's death, and every man gave his advice, whereupon Griflet came forward, and he was but a squire, and he was young, of the age of King Arthur. And Griflet besought the king for all the services he had done him, and to give him the order of knighthood. You are very young and tender of age, said King Arthur, to take so high an order upon yourself. Sir, said Griflet, I beseech you to make me knight. Sir, said Merlin, it would be a great pity to lose Griflet, for he will be a surpassingly good man when he is of age, abiding with you for the term of his life. If he hazards his body against yonder knight at the fountain, it is uncertain if he will return here, for that knight is one of the best knights in the world, and the strongest man of arms. Well, said King Arthur to Griflet, in accordance with your desire you will be made knight. So, at the desire of Griflet, the king made him knight. Now, since I have made you knight, said King Arthur, you must give me a gift. What gift will you have, Sir Griflet? You shall promise me, by the faith of your body, said King Arthur, when you have jousted with the knight at the fountain, whether it befalls that you are on foot or on horseback, that straightway you shall return to me without making any further quarrel. I will promise you, said Griflet, as you wish. Whereupon Sir Griflet mounted his horse in great haste, and dressed his shield, and grasped a spear in his hand, and then he rode at a gallop till he came to the fountain. And nearby he espied a rich pavilion, and under a cloth stood a sturdy horse. Stood a sturdy horse, well saddled and bridled, and upon a tree hung a shield of divers colours, with a great spear beside it. Then Sir Griflet smote upon the shield with the butt of his spear, so that the shield fell down to the ground. With that the knight came out of the pavilion, and said, Fair knight, why did you knock down my shield? Because I want to joust with you, said Sir Griflet. It would be better if you do not, said the knight, for you are still young, and but lately made knight, and your might is nothing compared to mine. Regardless of that, said Sir Griflet, I will joust with you. I am loath to do that, said the knight, but since I must do so, I shall prepare myself. But tell me this, from where do you come? Sir, said Griflet, I am of King Arthur's court. So the two knights ran together, and Sir Griflet's spear splintered into pieces. With this, the knight smote Sir Griflet through the shield, and pierced his left side, and in doing so broke his spear, so that the end of the knight's spear stuck in Sir Griflet's body, and Sir Griflet and his horse fell down. When the knight beheld Sir Griflet lying thus upon the ground, he alighted from his horse, and was sorely troubled, for he believed he had slain him. Then the knight unlaced Sir Grieflay's helmet and allowed him to regain his breath. And then he set Sir Grieflay upon his horse and commended him to God, and said that he had a mighty heart, and that, if he lived, he would prove to be a very worthy knight. And so Sir Grieflay rode unto the court, where a great fuss was made over him. But in spite of his wound, by the skill of the physician, Sir Grieflay was healed and saved. Shortly thereafter there arrived at the court 12 knights who were elderly men, and they came from the Emperor of Rome. Whereupon they demanded of King Arthur tribute for this realm, or else the Emperor would destroy him and his land. Well, said King Arthur, you are merely messengers, and therefore you may say what you wish. Otherwise you would die for these words. But this is my answer. I owe the Emperor no tribute, and none will I pay to him. On a fair field of battle will I give him my tribute, and that shall be with a sharp spear or a sharp sword, and that shall not be long in coming, by the soul of my father, Uther Pendragon. With this the messengers departed, exceedingly wrathful, and King Arthur was wrathful also, for they had come at a bad time, because the king was mightily distressed at the hurt of Sir Grieflay. And so King Arthur commanded a trusted man of his chamber to fetch his best horse and armor, together with all that appertained to his person, so that he might ride outside the city before the following morning. Whereupon, before it was day, he met with this man and his horse, and so he mounted up and dressed his shield, and took his spear, and bade his chamberlain to wait there till he returned. And so King Arthur rode at a slow pace till it was day. But then he became aware of 3 villains who did chase Merlin and wished to kill him. At this the king rode after them and called out, Flee, villains! Then were they afeared when they beheld a knight, and they fled. O Merlin, said King Arthur, you would have been slain here, despite all your sorcery, had I not espied you in danger. Nay, said Merlin, it is not thus, for I could have saved myself if I had so willed it, and you are more near your death than I am, for you go forward to your death, and God is not your friend. So, as they went on talking thus, they came to the fountain and the splendid pavilion beside it. Then King Arthur saw that there sat an armed knight in a chair. Sir knight, said King Arthur, for what reason do you abide here, so that no knight may ride his way unless he does joust with you? I advise you to abandon that custom. That custom, said the knight, have I ever used and will continue to use, despite him who will say nay, and he who is aggrieved by my custom, let him amend it if he wishes to do so. I will amend it, said King Arthur, and I shall oppose you, said the knight. Anon the knight mounted his horse, and dressed his shield, and took a great spear to hand. And they met so fiercely upon the field of combat that each one smote the other so hard upon his sword that their spears shattered into pieces. With this King Arthur pulled out his sword. Let us not do so, said the knight. It would be more seemly if we jousted once again with sharp spears. I agree well enough, said King Arthur, if I had any more spears. I have enough, said the knight. So there came a squire, and he brought 2 good spears, and King Arthur chose one, and the knight chose another. With this they spurred their horses, and rode toward each other with all their might, and both broke their spears in their hands. Then King Arthur set his hand upon his sword. Nay, said the knight, you shall do better. You are the best jouster that I have ever met, and for the love of the high order of knighthood, let us joust once again. I do so assent, said King Arthur. Anon there were brought unto them 2 great spears, and each one took a spear, and therewith they ran together so boldly that King Arthur's spear broke all into pieces, whereupon the knight hit the king with such force upon his shield that horse and man fell to the earth. With this King Arthur was eager for battle, and he pulled out his sword and said, I will contest you, Sir Knight, on foot, for I have lost the honor of being on horseback. I will remain on horseback, said the knight. Then was King Arthur angry, and he presented his shield toward the knight with his sword drawn. But when the knight perceived this, he dismounted from his horse, because he thought it was not honorable for a knight to have such an advantage for him to be on horseback, and his adversary be on foot. And so he alighted, and faced his shield toward King Arthur. So then there began a strong battle with many great strokes, and they both hewed and hacked so hard with their swords that pieces of their shields flew into the fields, and so much blood did they both shed that all the place they were fought was red with blood. And thus they fought long, and then rested themselves, and then they went to the battle again, and they hurled themselves together like 2 rams, so that they both fell to the earth. At last they smote together, and both their swords met, But the sword of the knight broke King Arthur's sword into 2 pieces, for which he was sorely distressed. Then the knight said unto King Arthur, You are in my power, whether it pleases me to save you or to slay you. Unless you yield to me as overcome and abject, you shall die. As for death, said King Arthur, I welcome it when it may come. But for me to yield unto you as overcome and abject, I would rather die than be so ashamed. And therewith King Arthur leaped upon King Pellinore, for that was the knight's name, and he grabbed him by the waist and threw him down and raised off his helmet. When the knight felt that, he was greatly distressed, so he got on top of Arthur and pulled off the king's helmet, and would have smitten off his head. At this there came Merlin, and he said, Knight, hold your hand, for if you slay that knight, you will put his realm in the greatest peril that ever was. This knight is a man of greater honor than you can ever imagine. Why, who is he? Said the knight. It is King Arthur, said Merlin. Then would the knight have slain King Arthur from fear of his wrath, and he lifted up his sword to do so. But Merlin cast an enchantment upon the knight, and he fell to the earth in a deep sleep. Whereupon Merlin raised King Arthur, and they both rode forth on the knight's horse. Alas, said King Arthur, what have you done, Merlin? Have you slain this good knight by your witchcraft? There lived not a knight as worthy as he was. I would gladly forego a year's income from my lands if he were still alive. Do not have a care, said Merlin, for he is healthier than you. He is but asleep, and you will awake within 3 hours. I told you what a formidable knight he was, and you would have been slain had I not been there. In addition, there does not live a greater knight than he is, and he shall hereafter render you good service. His name is King Pellinore, and he shall have 2 sons who will prove to be very honorable men, and their names shall be Sir Percival of Wales and Sir Lamorak of Wales. Save for one other man, they will have no equal in prowess of arms and virtuous living, and he shall tell you the name of your own son, begotten of your sister, who will be the destruction of all this realm. So the king and Merlin rode away and went off to see a hermit, who was a good man and a skillful physician, and the hermit examined all of Arthur's wounds and applied healing salves. King Arthur remained there for 3 days, and then his wounds were well healed, so that he was able to ride, whereupon they departed. As they rode, King Arthur said, I have no sword. It does not matter, said Merlin. Nearby is a sword that shall be yours, if I am able to arrange it. So they rode till they came to a lake which was fair and wide, and in the middle of the lake King Arthur beheld an arm enclothed in white silk, which held a magnificent sword in its hand. Lo, said Merlin, yonder is the sword of which I spoke. With that they saw a damsel walk upon the lake. What damsel is that? Said King Arthur. That is the Lady of the Lake, said Merlin, and within this lake is a great rock, and therein is as beautiful a place as any on earth, and most richly furnished. This damsel will come to you anon. Then speak gently to her, and she will give you the sword. Anon the damsel came unto King Arthur, and she saluted him, and he saluted her in return. Damsel, said King Arthur, what sword is that which yonder arm holds above the water? I wish it were mine, for I have no sword. King Arthur, said the damsel, the sword is called Excalibur, and it is mine, and if you will give me a gift when I ask it of you, you shall have the sword. By my faith, said King Arthur, I will give you whatever gift you request. Well, said the damsel, go into yonder barge and row yourself to the sword, and take it, and the scabbard with you. I will ask for my gift when I see my time. So King Arthur and Merlin dismounted, and tied their horses to 2 trees, and climbed into the barge. And when they came to the sword which the hand held, King Arthur grasped it by the handle, and took it with him. At this the arm and the hand sank under the water, and then King Arthur and Merlin returned to the shore, and rode forth. Whereupon King Arthur beheld a rich pavilion. What does yonder pavilion signify? Said King Arthur to Merlin. It is the pavilion of King Pellinore, the knight you last fought with, said Merlin, but he is out. He is not there. He had a dispute with a knight of yours, who is called Sir Eglaime, and they fought together, but in the end Sir Eglaime fled, or else he would have been killed, and King Pellinore chased him all the way to Caerleon. However, he shall soon meet with King Pellinore on the highway. That is well said, said King Arthur. Now that I have a sword, now I will wage battle against him, and be avenged upon him. Sir, you shall not do so, for that knight is weary of fighting and chasing, said Merlin, so you will gain no honor in disputing with him. In addition, he will not easily be matched by any knight now alive, and therefore my counsel is to let him pass. He shall render you good service in years to come, and his sons will do the same after his days are done. Also, you shall shortly see the day when you will be very glad to give him your sister to wed for his loyal service. Therefore, do not challenge him when you see him. When I see him, I will do as you advise me, said King Arthur. Then did King Arthur look upon the sword, and he liked it very well. Which do you like better, said Merlin, the sword or the scabbard? I like the sword better, said King Arthur. You are most unwise, said Merlin, for the scabbard is worth 10 swords. While you have the scabbard upon you, you shall never lose blood nor be sorely wounded. Therefore, always keep the scabbard with you. So they rode unto Caerleon, and on the way they encountered King Pellinore. But Merlin had worked such witchcraft that King Pellinore did not see King Arthur, and passed by without any words. I marvel, said King Arthur, that the knight did not speak. Sir, said Merlin, he saw you not, for if he had seen you, he would not have so easily departed. And so they came unto Caerleon, whereupon his knights were surpassingly glad to see King Arthur. And when they heard of his adventures, they marveled that he would jeopardize his person while thus unprotected. But all men of honor said it was fortunate to be under such a chieftain, who had placed his person in peril as other poor knights did. Getting to the end of Book 1 of some large number. What did I get myself into? In the meanwhile, there came a messenger from King Rience of North Wales, Ireland, and many other isles, and this was his message, greeting well King Arthur, and saying that King Rience had vanquished and overcome the 11 kings, and each of them had paid him homage, and the homage was thus: they gave him their beards cleanly shaven off, as much beard as each king had. Therefore the messenger now came for King Arthur's beard, for King Rience had arranged a mantle upon which he displayed the king's beard, and there lacked but one place upon the mantle. And so King Rience sent for King Arthur's beard, or else King Rience would invade King Arthur's land, and burn and slay everyone, and never leave until he had both King Arthur's head and his beard. Well, said King Arthur, you have delivered your message, which is the most villainous and most lewd message that ever a man had sent unto a king. Also, you may see that my beard is yet too young and sparse to make a display of it. But tell your king this, that I owe him no homage, nor do any of my elders, and before long he shall do me homage on both his knees, or else he shall lose his head by the faith of my body. This is the most shameful message that I have ever heard speak of. I have observed that your king has never yet met with an honorable man, but tell him I will have his head unless he pays me homage. With this the messenger departed. Now, is there anyone here, said King Arthur, who knows King Rience? Then a knight who is called Sir Naram answered, Sir, I know the king well. He is a surpassingly strong man of his body, as few who are living, and a surpassingly proud man. And, sir, do not doubt that he will make war upon you with a mighty army. Well, said King Arthur, I shall prepare for him in short order. Then King Arthur sent for all the children born on May Day, who were begotten by lords and born of ladies, for Merlin had told them that a child who was born on May Day would destroy him. Therefore King Arthur called for all the children upon pain of death, and so there they found many lords' sons, and all were sent unto the king. In addition, Mordred was sent by King Lot's wife, and all the children were put into a ship and cast adrift upon the sea. Some of the children were 4 weeks old, and some were younger. And so, by chance, the ship was driven by the tides unto a castle, where it was all torn asunder and smashed upon the rocks. For the most part, save that Mordred was cast up unto the shore, there did a good man find him, and nourish him till he was 14 years old. And then the good man brought Mordred to the court, as it is later told, toward of the end of the tale of the death of King Arthur. Many lords and barons of this realm were displeased because their children were lost, and many put the blame on Merlin more than on Arthur. But from dread and from love they held their peace. But when the messenger came to King Rience, then was he mad about beyond measure, and he assembled for himself a mighty army, as it is related after in the book of Sir Balin the Savage, which follows next, which tells how, because of destiny, Sir Balin got the sword. Whew. That ends book 1. I'm not sure how many in total there are. Whew. I'm a little uncomfortable. Not gonna lie. Let me see how many in total there are. Huh. There's 21 books. So, this is going to be a little bit of a journey. Well, I don't know how to end the stream, and no one's watching, so no one will care. So bye.